Welcome, everybody, to today's episode 12. This is the final episode in what's been an incredible season. And I know that we're still very tiny, very small. We've got some very loyal, but a very, very tiny base of people who are following, a lot of family and friends, and we've got a lot of new people. And we're really grateful, whoever you are, we're really grateful for the support, for you liking what we've been saying, for your engagement in the comments. And all I would say, and I know everybody's really, really busy, is please tell us what you like if you can, if you get the time. Please dialogue with us through the comment section and tell us about anything else that you think that you might be interested in seeing us do. So just kind of, it's kind of, I want to just give you a quick run through of some of the stuff that you can expect in season 2. And some of the ideas that we've got. And again, I'm open to suggestions. And what we will do is we'll give a link to the podcast email address if it isn't already in the standard description. Please email us if it's not, and we're happy. Or if even you or you know somebody else who you think might be a guest or somebody we should approach or somebody we should be talking to, then please do let us know. It only kind of stands really to say thank you to Sylvie. And I think we've sorted out our volume problem, which again, it's been teething problems. We're getting used to the studio. We kind of lost our studio person and then kind of had to bring somebody in on the back of someone else's setup. But so very grateful for Sylvie. Loved Sylvie's kind of episode as well. It's been very popular. Struck a very kind of a raw note with and a powerful note with a lot of people. So again, thank you for that. And still be interested to know which, if any, or who, or how many of these podcasts were your favorite, or what was your favorite point. So, what would you like us to maybe clarify? Maybe stuff you didn't understand, or stuff you didn't like. You kind of think, oh, that's not relevant, or stuff I didn't maybe say I don't cover enough on. So again, as I said, thank you to Sylvie. I want to thank you, all the guests, all the people who gave up their valuable, precious time to come on this podcast and support us. And may I say as well, most kind of done so graciously and with an open heart and kind of came to give this episode some kind of vibrancy, some life, and some really, really valuable content rather. What I wanted to say was, that this was a podcast obviously born out of a passion, a desire to reach out to people, to reach out to both professionals, people who have or don't have an interest, or to those who are affected, whether you are directly affected or you know people who have been affected, or it's your children or your partners. And again, I'm here to try to reduce the amount of isolation that you may feel as a human being, as a person on this planet, and to kind of describe my faith journey, not as a person who's perfect. And I want to be clear, because it seems to have been that somewhere implied in my walk with faith that I was this kind of really together, really kind of, not perfect person who didn't have temptations, who didn't have faults, who didn't fall sometimes, who didn't basically have things that I'm still working on and experiences that are still difficult to kind of process and manage, even as a therapist or a dad or as just a partner, a husband rather, or that stuff is just not true. I'm a person just like everybody else, except that my journey has been one that's it's kind of in my book, and each day brings its own opportunities, it brings its own blessings, and it also sometimes brings its challenges. As I said, I'm a human being. I suffer. I'm going to suffer more. I have fears just like everybody else. But one of the things that I guess I don't live with in terms of what I had lived with in the past is terror and a sense of hopelessness and a sense of purposelessness. I want to explore my faith, and I want to do that with you guys. I want to do that with you guys who don't have a faith or who have a different faith from mine, and all those who are searching. And I want to do that more as we go. So again, I want to thank you to all of our guests, and Dr. Nicholas will be joining us for some specific episodes in season 2, possibly season 3. That might even be a little bit of a spin-off on its own. Lots of interesting topics. We're kind of going to dive into philosophical issues, religious, spiritual, psychological, and I suppose some kind of controversial topics. I've also got some really interesting guests. One of them is John Wedger, ex-Metropolitan Scotland Yard police detective, who was a whistleblower who's pushed out of the police force for exposing abuse in the upper echelons of power. Quite a controversial character by most accounts. I met John personally a few days ago. Spent about 4 hours in his time, and I found him to be a most gracious, authentic, and very endearing person. And I continue to pray for John. He exposes himself in some of life's most treacherous places, and I continue to, for him and for people who put their neck on the line, for children who've been abused. And he does a lot around, again, a topic which most people, especially in the secular world, will kind of deny exists, which is satanic and ritual abuse. As a Catholic, as a Christian, I believe in good and evil. I believe in demons, and I believe, but I believe more powerfully in God and the power of God and the power of Christ, and I believe in putting on Christ's armor, and I do that through my faith, and I do that through prayer, and I do that through receiving the sacraments, and I do that through the Eucharist and confession. So I think that John makes very compelling arguments, and I'm actually hoping to do a series of conversations with John, and he brings his own followers as well. And he's well known. He's a well-known media figure. He's done a number of documentaries. He's been on a number of national news programs. And I think he's written one book, and he's going to be writing another. So that's going to be interesting. I've got tons of other people who are starting to kind of show interest. But one of the other things that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be starting to read my book. I'm going to be taking it kind of summary chapter by chapter. And I'm just going to be dialoguing with you guys. I'm just going to be unpacking some of the things that are all here. So most of you have asked some questions, right? Now, I don't have a big enough following at the moment to kind of do an open live Ask Me Anything, right? So I've kind of done the next best thing, which is open it up to all the people I know, close, personal, and otherwise, who have read my book. And I've asked them for some questions. Now, I'm going to do my best to answer all of them. But if I don't, I will get to your question. But if it's kind of been answered already by a similar question, then I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm just going to refer you to what I said earlier and point out the relevance to that. But I just don't know if there's anybody has any thoughts about me reading my book to you guys. I don't want it to be a monologue. I want it to be interactive. I'm going to stop at certain points, because what I want to do is I kind of want to immerse you in how I experience that at any given time when I'm reading it back, trying to convey the message that I was trying to communicate, and also trying to pull out of it things that may have not been entirely clear, for example, from the very first time when I did that. So this episode is going to be just that. I'm thanking everybody. I'm asking you to bear with us, and thank you for bearing, kind of sticking with us, even when we were kind of really, some of our podcast signals weren't good and the sound wasn't good and all of that kind of stuff. We hope we're resolving that stuff. And I'm not saying that we're going to be completely without any technical issues in the future, but we're definitely looking to either completely get rid of them or at least minimize them significantly. And so today, as this is the final episode of season 1, a season that is just for me such a massive achievement. I just feel so grateful to Sylvie, so grateful to everybody who's come on the podcast, so grateful to all of you who support it. And it's the AMA, the Ask Me Anything from people who have read my book. So I'm going to switch between here on a laptop where I've got some questions already done. I'm going to give people a shout out. And I've got some questions on my phone as well. So I'm going to switch between them. And I'm kind of going to get into that now. So the first question that I've got, and maybe some of this hasn't been written properly, so it might have been rushed, or maybe I'm not interpreting the question properly. So if I've gotten it wrong and it's you, and then let me know in the comments. But the first one is: are there any parts you wish had been told differently? And I think, and that's from you, Sylvie, and I think you mean any parts of my book, right? My story. Yeah. Okay. Um, no. Is there more I could have said? Was there more to add? Yeah, I think as I explained, or maybe I didn't explain in the podcast. I think I might have done. Maybe I didn't, but if not, I'll explain it here. Um, there's about 3 or 4 books on the cutting room floor that could have gone into Broken Roads. I'm not afraid personally to put everything out there, to put even the stuff that I didn't take it out of that. I took it out because of my organization, the optic, people. It's not that I'm afraid to stand up for my faith in Christ and to speak out against evil and to speak out against the horrors of abuse, or to even be very specific about being molested and raped and abused, and also experiencing things like satanic ritual abuse as a child. I'm not afraid of those things. I'm also not afraid to call it out in the culture. However, my aim isn't to be controversial, and that's not because I'm afraid. It's because I want to engage people. I want to have conversations with people, and I think there's enough people who are challenging really, really tricky things. And I've also got my children. I've got my wife. I have to, and I've also got me as a human being, as a person. I have to respect myself. I think I've kind of gone way, way further than perhaps most or anybody that I know has, in kind of being frank and upfront and honest. And I don't think that I've pulled any punches in some places. And also, I think telling stuff differently. What would I have said differently? Well, I also don't want to apologize for some of the messiness. So it may have not, or could, maybe somebody could be, being a school teacher and thinking I could have didn't do this or I didn't do that. By the time I'd finished editing the book and it went to publication, I was happy. So it wouldn't have gone to the world if I didn't think it was the best I could do, giving all of the considerations that I was taking into account, given the fact that I had to protect my own reputation. I had to protect my family. I had to protect my children, and I also had to, at the same time, be open and honest and candid. And again, as I said, I'm not here to be controversial. I'm not a perfect human being. I don't want anybody to kind of think, oh, we'll follow Colin. He's on a pedestal. He's perfect. He's holy. He's all of these things. Please don't do that. I'm a person. I'm in need. I'm in need of a savior. I need Christ. I need other people. I need my friends. I need the love of other people. And I need to be corrected as well. If people see me kind of going off in the wrong direction. So, I need other people's strong love. I need discipline from other people who love me, people who care enough about me to kind of say the difficult things that might feel uncomfortable or that you might think I might not receive too well. I'm open for that. So this story is about redemption, transformation. This is about questioning the status quo. This is about being inquisitive and curious. And this is about knowing that it's okay to do that. And it's also about getting rid of the shame of the past and stop and in a way where you don't take the responsibility for stuff that isn't yours or carry the shame that belongs to other people. And it's also about accountability. So it's also about doing that when it is you, when it does come down to you, because that is part of recovery, at least from my perspective. And there are many people, please, if you're one of them, who may disagree with it, but regardless of how brutal, how tragic, and how traumatized I was, and I was broken. I lived in darkness. I never thought I was getting out. I had to take responsibility, and some people wanted to keep me as a broken little buddy who needed kind of patting and who needed special treatment. I had to be held to account. When I did things that were unacceptable, I had to face the consequences of that. I had to be held accountable, but I also needed redemption. I needed to know that I could work on myself, that I could make amends, that I could be saved, that I could mend relationships, that I could make relationships work. So, mine's is about recovery, mine's is about freedom, mine's is about strength and courage, and mine's obviously is about my relationship, um, amazing relationship with my family, my wife, other people that I have that are important to me, my organization, most of all, my relationship with Christ. So I hope that that's answered the question, maybe over answered it, and I might have answered a few others along the way. But the next question is from Sandra, and it says, if there was one chapter, everything, I think she means everyone, should read, which one is it and why? That's a tough question, right? Because that's kind of thinking, which one should I read? I don't know. Which one do you think? Which chapter, if any chapter, is there that you think anyone should read? I think the last my last prologue, if you like, into the world, I think the beginning, the very opening part and the very closing part. And I think, but to understand those two parts, you have to read all the stuff in the middle. So I think it's, I don't know. Maybe somebody else feels different. Do you think there's one part out of all parts? Is there, can there be only one, as they say in Highlander? Yeah. Or perhaps there's two. I don't know. But yeah, so sorry, I'm ducking out of answering that question really, but kind of answered it as best as I can. But thanks for the question, Sandra. Has it changed people's perception and how they interact with me? And if so, how? Well, yeah, again, that's from Sandra. I don't know. Has it? I guess only people would know that. Has it changed your perception of me? And has it changed how you interact with me? And I suppose the fear, and I think this is very normal fear, right? I have to say, not only do I not think that I've experienced any of that, and if I have experienced anything, it's been positivity, it's been love, and it's been acceptance, and it's been a kind of a nod of acknowledgement from people. But if I had experienced anything kind of negative, like I'm bigger than that. And I would have hoped that if somebody didn't quite get or didn't understand or they disagreed or they felt strongly about something, that they would have felt able to come and talk to me about that. Or equally, to kind of come and share some stuff with me. What I've not had, which I would have hoped that I would have had, is more people coming forward to kind of talk about their experiences, or feeling that they're able to kind of come forward and talk about their experiences. And I don't know if that's because maybe they might minimize, or they're still ashamed, or they still feel embarrassed, or they just feel that it's an inconvenience. But I just want to say, look, I'm open to conversations with people, obviously in privacy and in confidence. If you do want to kind of come and have a brief chat, or you just want to kind of say something, people have kind of reached out different ways, but not necessarily in face to face. But I don't know. To anybody out there, has reading my book changed the way you perceive me, and do you react differently around me? Maybe, don't know. So again, sorry, Sandra, not doing too well. Sylvie's question: are there any parts you didn't share that I didn't share and that I can now? I suppose I'd say kind of like generally no, there isn't, because it kind of belongs to a different narrative. It belongs to different stuff that I'm working on, and I think I'll build on that as I go through the podcast. And I think I've already touched on some of that stuff in different podcasts throughout episode 1. However, what I guess I want, I don't know. You can tell me if I was successful in communicating this stuff, right? Is that I don't know if I emphasized how powerful the experiences I had with intrusive thoughts were, and how shameful those thoughts were, and how crushing and disabling they were, and how difficult it was to just look another human being in the eyes when I was going through that. And actually, that I experienced that stuff for about 13 to 15 years, and I'm still not free of them, not entirely. They're kind of, if I said that they started and then they got worse and they were at 100%, I'd say they're probably at 2% today, 1%, something like that. So they're virtually, but it doesn't mean that when I'm kind of in a particular place that those things can become, if I'm going through a difficult time, tend to really give myself a hard time if I'm really struggling, right? Because there's an implicit message that I give to myself that I should be perfect. I shouldn't fall. I shouldn't make mistakes. I should always be, this perfect. And if I'm kind of decided through forgetting who who I am, what I'm made for. So if I can lose my way in my faith journey just a minute, just for a minute, which I can do. It's not so much today, but it has, it's been there, and it can still happen. Yeah, it's 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 that stuff. It's I don't know if I emphasized the degree to which how disabling the shame is, and how shame and self reproach and self hatred, self condemnation, how it utterly and totally took away any sense of me feeling like there was anything worth living for, and how I lived in utter desperation, feeling like I couldn't take my life because that would be an offense to God, and then feeling like I was had no alternative but to suffer. And I lived like that, and I built a business, and I had relationships, and I went on holiday, and I did normal things, at least from the outside. But inside, I don't know if I communicated that powerfully or clearly or succinctly enough just how much I suffered internally, how much of this I took as a soul battle to be fought on my own because I was so ashamed of telling other people. I didn't think that the world would end. I just thought I would be rejected. I thought that people would abandon me. They would push me away. They would be frightened. The worst thing I thought about my intrusive thoughts, that to be clear, I knew rationally that they were not true, that I wouldn't do the things those thoughts told me I would do, and I wasn't the type of person that those thoughts told me I was. But I had a deep fear, and also they wouldn't stop. They would not stop tormenting me. So felt like they had a power on their own. Intrusive thoughts aren't just reoccurring messages, reoccurring thoughts, reoccurring dalliances. If you suffer with intrusive thoughts, they are hell. They are like a living hell. They are like as if you are demon possessed, as if something else, and it's not schizophrenia. I know the difference. It's like you're being tormented constantly, and my biggest fear was if I told people, they'd go away, or that they would believe my intrusive thoughts, and they would be afraid that I would be or do these terrible things. And that was hell. And anybody who's suffering from that, if you can, if it's available to you, and I know the NHS is in a mess in mental health services and charities, and I don't know what the solution is for some of you guys. Talk to each other, go to self-help groups, talk. That there is no cure. I don't want to talk about it as a cure, because that would send the wrong message. But there is recovery, there is relief. There's resources, OCD online. I'm going to post some of those things for you. I think I've already posted some of them, but I'm going to be a bit more explicit with some of them. And there's people, some really brave people, who talk really explicitly about what those thoughts are and how they experience themselves, and the pain and the suffering that those guys have gone through. And and really, I understand from my perspective in my faith journey, that's the enemy. That's evil at work in it, and it wants to separate you from the people that you love. It wants to destroy you. It wants you to believe that you're not worthy. It wants you to feel like there's no hope. And if there's anything that I'm saying, look, I know what that's like, and I don't want to say that the road and the recovery is easy. And I know you probably don't believe this if you're really, really in it. You probably believe the thoughts more, and you're afraid, and you're crippled by shame and fear and anxiety and terror. Um, you can recover. You can gain back your power. You can find a way forward. It's going to be different for everybody. It's going to be different lengths and periods of time. It's going to come in different ways. Going back to what Dr. Nicholas said, you can build some good relationships, but maybe it's too much for one or two people to bear. So share it around. If anything, go look, get some self-help groups. There are lots of people. There's more people today suffering in silence, thinking that there's something wrong with them. And I mean, the idea that we're perfect and that we shouldn't have something wrong with us is a myth anyway. We've all got something that we need to work on. We've all got wounds. We're all persons. We're all humans. We're incomplete. We are all projects, but some of us are carrying some really, really deep personal struggles, real painful ones. And so I want to say that I see you, and I encourage you to reach out, and I hope that something in my book is just a bit of a resource and a little bit of an inkling that kind of counteracts the false belief that you are irredeemable, or that you can't make it, or there's no hope. Whilst there's breath, there's hope. And and I pray for everybody constantly to find the strength to kind of fight that stuff. So thanks for the question, Sylvie. When's the next book coming? Well, I'm working on 2 other books at the moment, and the short answer is don't know. How long's a piece of string? In my life, I've got so many different things that I'm working on, and I've got so many different projects. I mean, I think it's fairly well known that I'm a little bit busy with stuff. So, but yeah, it's all kind of there. Next question. I hope that answers your question, Barley, but thank you for that. And next question comes from Nick, and it says, why did I use a ghostwriter when I'm such a good communicator and dynamic speaker? Good question, and it gives me a good opportunity to kind of clarify the point here. So I didn't employ a ghostwriter in the traditional sense, as I kind of like somebody asked me a lot of questions, they went away, wrote a book and give it to me. And it wasn't really the services that I know that Christopher, who we had on the very first podcast, I wanted to honor him, and it was a way of me saying thank you to him for listening to my story, hearing all of that kind of, all of the things I went through, and kind of helping me walk through my book. But it was not a matter of my confidence or ability to write. And to be clear, I wrote the majority of the book. A lot of it was written after long interviews. Christopher helped me with the style. Christopher helped me with kind of like putting some structure to it. And then it was edited, re-edited, and so it was a collaboration. But the whole point was, I write lots of stuff. I've written dissertations, I've written lots of essays and training, and yeah, writing isn't a problem. The technical part isn't an issue, and it wasn't a confidence thing. It was, I had been trying to do stuff for such a long time, and I just kept procrastinating because I was afraid. And I also didn't want to go back into stuff that had kind of been put to bed, and I also didn't really want to kind of wake up stuff that was kind of, I was working on, and it was already kind of pretty live. So I knew that if I had somebody that I worked with, then it kind of became a project that I had to attend to. I couldn't kind of brush it under the carpet, and I would have somebody annoying me. So it's a bit like, it was a bit like, in some way, a best way I can describe how I used Christopher was to, like you use a personal coach, right? You want to get fit. You kind of they don't do the exercise, but they kind of like tell you and phone you up and say, "Where are you?" at 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning when you're meant to go for that jog, or they're that constant reminder, and also that kind of encouragement, I suppose, which I had not just from Christopher, but I was having that encouragement anyway. But the material, most of all, it was because of the material. And one of the things, and I'm eternally grateful to Christopher for this, is because he was a good sounding board for stuff, you know, in terms of when I would tell my story. So, and he would kind of say, "Do you think it happened like that? Or was that really how it was?" So it was a good way of kind of sense checking some stuff. And then he would write and summarize stuff and he would send it to me, and then I'd edit it and I'd say, "No, that's the wrong way around. That didn't happen like that. That's not what I said." And, and stuff I had already written. And then there's many bits in there. So there's definitely not, it's not a ghostwriter in a traditional sense of they walk around, they observe Colin, and they write this book about him. Or they interview other people who knows Colin, and they do my autobiography. So I hope that clarifies. And yeah, it was not. And thank you for saying that I'm a good communicator and a dynamic speaker. I don't think I am, but but I'm a podcast host as well, right? And I don't think, I didn't think I was one of them, but here I am doing it. I'm not saying I'm a good one, but I'm here. And so there we go. But thanks for that question, Nick. And I hope I've answered that. It's not a straightforward kind of like, why did I? Yeah, I shouldn't have. It's not, and I didn't see my use, at least because he does do ghostwriting. I didn't see my use of Christopher as using his skills as a ghostwriter, for example, but he does do that, and he's a very good one. I saw it as he was a skilled person who I could utilize and use to motivate myself and to help me push myself across the finish line. But it was mine, my story. There's nothing of Christopher in there. He didn't write. There's nothing that came from him, in the sense of it's all mine. It's all authentic. It's all my story. It's all told. Apart from a few places where he'd written some stuff and he kept some terminology in, which I thought was quite cute, and I kept it in because I wouldn't say stuff like that. One of the words is "darn it, heel," came from him. Thanks for that, Christopher. I kept that in because I thought it was cute. When did I first decide to write the book? Well, okay. 2015, I think it was. I started 2015, 2016. I had actually written the book. I think the first title of the book was going to be called Indelible. And then it was a bit more dramatic. It was When Darkness Comes. So it's had many titles before it eventually had the title Broken Roads, as many things do. Same as projects, businesses, ideas. That's the kind of, if you like, I suppose, the creative process, right? It goes through many changes until you finally arrive at a place where you kind of think, okay, that's kind of where I want it to be, or that feels right, at least for now. So I wrote a part of it myself, and then that was a part many years later. So that then sat on a computer disk, and I read it and I looked at it, and I sent that to, when I eventually reached out to Christopher, and I think I reached out to Christopher something like 2019. So there was a lot of time in between then, as I was busy working on other things. Life was happening, all sorts of other things were happening, moving home, doing this, doing that, kids growing up, leaving, and all the normal life stuff that goes on. And I sent him my opening, which I've still got. I've got every single thing that I've written, every single thing I've took out, every single edit. Like I said, there's about 3 or 4 books in the cutting room floor. And one of his comments was, he said it was a bit lectury. It's me kind of finger wagging at the world. And I suppose it was interesting. And straight away I knew I wanted to work with Christopher because I knew he wasn't going to tell me things that were not true. He was, even at the risk of kind of like, because that's, one of the parts was the opening gambit to the book, the part as a little boy as I'm being raped, and but I writ it in a very different way, and a lot of what I did write did go in, but it was kind of let's say recolored and repositioned in terms of the narrative, and I I guess at that point, I was kind of angry still. There was still a part of me that was kind of like, world, why did you let this happen? God, why did you let this happen? Why did it happen? Now I'm going to shove this in your face and show you what you've done. And that's not my message. That wasn't what I wanted to put out there. So, yeah, that's when I first decided to write the book. And it took a long time after that because it was painful, it was difficult, and it was inconvenient because, there were times when life was okay, right? Things were good. It was summertime. It was, we were going on holiday. Things were good. Family was healthy. There was no issues. And who wants to go put on their hiking boots and go, into treacherous places then? But I pushed on through, obviously. Since releasing the book, do I have any updates? E.g., you said you speak to all but one of your children in the book, but now speak to all of them. If so, what changed? Anne. Thanks, Anne. My wife, she's dogged, she's determined. My kids decided they were ready to talk to me. And I'm so grateful. So I managed to begin to establish a relationship with Luca and with my daughter, Sienna. And I'm super, super grateful. It's great, still new at times, still a bit fresh. And I'm kind of glad. And but also, I think we all experience, that with the blessings comes the reality of how much I've missed, how much they've missed out on. So it's a blessing and it's a pain, but it's also the right thing, and I'm grateful that they found it in their hearts to begin a process of allowing themselves to consider having a relationship with me, and also to have a relationship with me as people, as young persons, young developing people. I mean, they're both adults. Yeah. So what changed? God, the Holy Spirit, opportunity, my wife, time. That's what changed. I don't know which of those in what order, but yeah. Always God, I suppose. The time was right. If I could have had anyone voice the audiobook, who would it be? Anne, thank you. Who would it be? Right. Well, it would be somebody Scottish or somebody good who puts on a good Scottish accent. Maybe Mel Gibson's kind of William Wallace. Could have been him. Could have been equally a female narrator who was Scottish. I think it has to be a Scottish narrator. There's lots of people I can think of. There's a particular actor who played Jimmy Boyle. Yeah, I think he's done a number of things. I can't think of who he is. I will put it in the link. I think if I had, the time, the money, the contacts, maybe I'd get him to read it. But yeah, I've got some ideas about the audiobook anyway. And it is coming soon. Again, it's been me who's delayed it. The publishers have been harassing me because I haven't done it. And yeah, we'll see. There may be a few surprises yet in terms of who does that audio. Who would you want to play me in a film adaptation? And would you want it to be animated or not? Anne and Sandra. So I did clarify, and I said, goodness me, no, I wouldn't want a cartoon of my life. But it was said in good jest, and we had a laugh about it. I was thinking, can you imagine that cartoon leaking out to children? I mean, goodness me, I think I'd be over hot coals, traumatizing people, traumatizing children everywhere. Yeah, when not nice things happen to Bugs Bunny. So, yeah, no, I wouldn't like an animation. Thank you very much, but thank you for the laugh and the joke. It was fun. at the time. Who would I want to play me in a film adaptation? Don't know. Maybe the same guy that does the narration. Um, yeah, I don't know. Who would you think if there was ever the possibility of there being a film adaptation? Who would play me? Who do you think the actors out there today, or would it be different actors? I think it would have to be different actors because it chronicles my life at different times. Maybe the last one would be me acting, me being me. So I don't know how they're going to get somebody with a head of hair to lose all their hair and turn into me. But yeah, AR, film, whatever it is that they do, the special effects, I suppose they can do wonders, right? Nowadays. So yeah, I don't know. Thanks for that, but it's fun to think about. So thank you. When will I officially present my book to the world? It seems that readers have not yet had the opportunity to get to know me personally, not only through the written word, but also through dialogue, a thoughtful lecture, or even a quiet evening spent in the company of the author. I think you mean me, right? Okay. P.S. I would be delighted to assist in organising such an event. And you know very well that I can refine every detail to ensure that the event is a success. Annetta, my wife. Okay. Right. I don't know. Why don't I? I'm not really. Uh, I don't like public things. I don't like shouting about things. I don't like. I'm not a pushy guy. I'm quite reserved. I'm also very shy. Despite what people may think. Um, yeah, I don't, and I also don't. Yeah, I don't even know. I just think like if people tell me the book's good enough, they want to hear more, then I'm willing to do more. I'm going to be doing some more stuff as I've discussed anyway. And if it gets to the point where the world tells me, not just my wife, right? Because my wife's biased. I mean, you know. So if the world says they want more, then maybe I will, and maybe I might ask my wife to arrange all of that. But I do know I have had some invites where people have said, "Can I come and do a talk?" And I know they mean well, but I just think I'm not a spectacle. I'm not like the three-headed man in the circus. Come and have a look at the three. And I know that they don't mean that like that. Um, but little Colin is very precious to me. And he had nobody, So if little Colin feels anxious, and again, I'm going to talk, and people might go, little Colin doesn't exist. Well, he does. And if you're going to recover, you're going to have to recover that little part of you as well, because he's still there. He needs reassurance. He needs to know that me, big Colin, growing up, Colin, who's a man, is going to protect him. I'm capable. I'm not going to do crazy stuff, right, and put him at risk, and I'm not going to take him into risky situations. That I'm going to be there. So little Colin's a part of me that needs to integrate. He's obviously not a real, actual child, but there are parts of us. We experience ourselves in parts, even though we're a whole person. There's a part of me that is a little child who gets frightened just like other little children do. And so if he doesn't feel it's right, then Big Colin will say it's okay. I'm not going to put him through that. And I guess his message to the world is, if the world wants more, if the world wants more, and little Colin feels that it's warranted, that he really wants to be listened to, because what he has to say has some value to the world, rather than he's a spectacle, he's just somebody, then yeah, I think we'd be up for that, me and little Colin. So thank you to my lovely wife, and thank you for the double episode that we did together. It was amazing, it was incredible. And thank you for you again, Sylvie, for filling in the middle episode. That was a great episode as well. What would I say to little Colin now, Maxine? What would I say to little Colin right now? Hmm. Ah, kind of hits a real raw nerve. I wouldn't say anything to little Colin except I'd pick him up, hold him. I don't have to say anything to him. Just that it's okay. It's okay. So, next question. Thanks for that, Maxine. Um, you have committed your life to helping the most vulnerable people in society and have had a positive impact on so many people's lives. Do you ever reflect on your experiences and wonder if you went through what you did so that you could help so many others? Yeah, and no, and don't know is the answer. Um, and also like, could it have been like differently if it was? could could have could have gone through different experiences to be able to help and yeah, and that you say I've committed my life to helping the most vulnerable people. No, no, no. I don't see myself in that way. Of course, I've committed my life to something. Um, but when I think of so many other people, this is also my business. So I make money out of what I do. I make a living. I'm a developer. I'm an investor. I do lots of other things. I've fine tuned and honed my craft. Um, and my life in my business is pointed towards vulnerable people. I just can't see a world where we couldn't. Why wouldn't we? If I'm honest, I've questioned sometimes the kind of the vulnerable groups I help, and this is something that as I get older, I think back to young adults and children who've been abused, and I often didn't. I've not done that work in the past. I've supported others to do it just because it's too raw. Yeah, I still don't think I'm ready. I'd be I'd be no help to little vulnerable people um, if I cried my eyes out every 2 minutes. So yeah, and it's a real difficult thing um, to imagine what darkness is in a person's heart to hurt little people. Yeah. So thanks for those, Maxine. Um, there's another one. It says excluding your family. So about myself, right? So excluding my family, about myself and my own achievements. What is the thing I am most proud of? Right. So I can't say my family. It has to be about me. Okay. What am I most proud of? Ooh, not taking my life, not ending my life through all of those really dark, painful experiences that I had. I'm glad that I didn't leave the world, leave my children, leave people, offend God. I think it has to be that. How did your childhood in Glasgow shape your sense of self and self awareness, Aneta? Oh dear, these questions are tough, aren't they? Uh, oh, this is where I have to be careful, right? Because I don't want people to think like I've disappeared up my own backside or that I think I'm better than people. But my experience of Glasgow wasn't a good one. My experience of growing up in Glasgow was harsh, it was rough, it was tough, it was violent, it was not wholesome, it was not transformative. Um, I think it showed me the depths of deprivation, desperation, hostility, violence, aggression, and the futility of that. I think it shaped me in a good way in the sense of it taught me everything about human beings and everything about the world and everything about being a person that I didn't want to be. So, yeah. And I know that people want to talk very positively and they've got different experiences from me, and I'm not taking away from that. I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just giving you my experience. Um, and I think it obviously made me a tougher character. I'm made of tougher stuff, because of it. And also, I kind of no BS kind of person, in the right context. I think I'm quite loving and quite approachable, but when I need to be, my red line is a red line, and people know that. Sense of self awareness as well just makes me aware of kind of the potential for evil and darkness and deprivation to crush a person's soul forever and destroy them, but also the potential for light, for goodness, for God, for the Holy Spirit to lift them up, transform, and transcend them. It's never more evident in those darkest places. Yeah, and that's how I guess it shaped my self awareness. I'm very grateful, is I guess what I'm trying to say. I feel very fortunate and very grateful. He said, is the strong sense of faith in the book. Is the strong sense of faith in the book to demonstrate the turning point, a coping strategy, or perhaps something else, something beyond all of that? Okay, that's from my wife Annetta again. So again, she's got quite a few questions here. I think she's hogging the questions. Uh, yeah. Um, right. Just giving us both sense, right? So I think what you're asking is, was my turning point in the book a genuine turning point, or did I just imagine it? Did I just use it as a coping strategy? Um, well, objectively speaking, I guess we'll never know, right? I have to be fair because I don't want to say that things couldn't have conspired and I couldn't have kind of tricked myself into believing something that's not true, and it might all just be like smoke and mirrors. Not for me. It was genuine, and it's not a coping strategy. Whatever it was that happened in terms of my conversion and my faith, um, it was like a fortress. It was like a fire to kind of just change and move in a different direction. Yeah, coping strategies are like white knuckling. They're kind of like holding on by the skin of your teeth or your nails, and it's not that. I live with freedom. I still live with struggle and pain. Um, but yeah, I don't I don't cope today. I live within the struggle, and I have faith, and I take it to prayer, and I take it to Christ, and I lean on my faith, and I lean on many, many things in my relationships as well, even where it's difficult. So I hope that answers. I hope I've understood your question. I hope it answers your question. Um, yeah, something beyond all of that. It is something beyond all of that. It's got to me. It is Christ. It's God. Um, and how has writing the book changed the way you see your younger self? Yeah, I kind of see it from all angles. I just kind of think like I look at kids today. You title them antisocial behaviour or kids in prison or whatever, and we deserve as communities, as people, to protect ourselves, to be able to have recourse to kind of order and kind of some degree of normalcy, right? But I also have a lot of pain that's there, because I know that underneath all of that, there must be struggle and there must be dysfunction. There must be a reason, because when I think back and I look on myself, when I'm very young, I feel very sad about myself. As I grew up, I also feel sad for the world, because the world didn't deserve a Colin like that. And again, I don't think I've said this publicly, but I broke into people's shops and houses when I was young, as a child, as a teenager. And I stole, and I was dishonest, and I'm sorry. I've lived my whole life trying to make up for that, and God will be my judge of whether I ever did. And I've been stolen from. I've had stuff taken from me. I've experienced it on the other side, and I'm so sorry for anything that I put people through. You didn't deserve that. And although, and if I haven't made direct amends to you, I'm doing everything I can to make amends wherever I can, and I'm genuinely really sorry for that. So I guess I would say that changed the way I see my younger self. Yeah, I feel conflicted about my younger self. I feel compassion and understanding, but it's a difficult one, right? Because you couldn't have cuddled me back into integration. I needed more than that. It's complicated. It's complicated. I didn't have a good dad. I didn't have a good family. I needed that. Nicholas talks about culture. I needed a good culture. I didn't have that either. I'm very interested in forgiveness, both of others and Colin's of himself. Was one harder than the other? Yeah, it's strange, because the just I suppose, as I understand it biblically from a Christian perspective, if you don't forgive, then your Father in heaven won't forgive you, for example, right? To me, having to live with that, I experienced that in a way where it's symbiotic. I don't think it is possible to. I know there's lots of people misunderstand or may have misunderstood what I'm saying, and I want to clarify here about forgiveness. In the Bible, Christ talks about people who come and ask for forgiveness. If somebody hasn't asked for your forgiveness, then you don't owe it to them. However, I'm also talking about other parts of the Bible. I'm also talking about forgiveness in terms of it being something that's linked to transformation and personal, internal, innermost healing. And in order to do that, I believe that we have to be willing. So that is, under the right circumstances, if somebody came to us who had caused us great pain, such as, or even things that are abominable, right? What they did is on the surface of things unforgivable. And Christ also says about those who have hurt his little ones or misled his little ones, it's better that they had a millstone tied to their neck and were thrown to the depths of the ocean. Something like that, right? He gets kind of like Tony Soprano on those people. And I guess, that includes pedophiles and people who rape children, right? So, but if there was one of them who, if my abuser had come to me and had faced justice and had asked me genuinely, and I could evidence his remorse, and I was convinced of it, then I would try to forgive. And I think that's all that's being asked of us. Because otherwise, I couldn't forgive myself because my heart was too hard. My heart our hearts are meant to be made of flesh. They're not meant to be made of stone. And if our hearts are turned to stone because of things that people have done to us, inevitably, I don't think that you can then love yourself, um, forgive yourself, and yeah, forgiving me. It's really funny how that last question ties into this question. Um, about forgiveness. Forgiveness is a process as well. It's not a one-time event. Sometimes it is, you know. Sometimes something happens, there's a break or a wound in a relationship, and you approach somebody and the time is right and the healing's instantaneous and things move on. Or sometimes it's tough family members, for example, or people where the relationship is, you always feel there's a position where there's somebody that you have to protect yourself from. You know, you might have a parent who has continually hurt you, continually abandoned you, continually manipulated you, or isn't safe to be around. Um, so forgiveness is, I think, I mean, there's been so much written about forgiveness, right? And I think, to be fair, we'll talk more about that. We'll probably do some specific podcasts about that as well. But it's such a big topic. And I don't want to sit here and lecture people. I really don't. I'm a person, I'm a project, I'm in process. I see the importance for forgiveness. And if it's not for the other person, in and of itself, it is for the person who holds the wounds in their own hearts that the other person has done to them. But that doesn't mean that people are not accountable, or they shouldn't be held to account, or that they shouldn't be punished, and that they shouldn't face actions for their wrongdoing. So I'm being completely clear here, right? That if somebody has hurt somebody to the point where it's illegal, it's an abomination, and it's severe, I think that they should always face consequences. The forgiveness part is something, if it ever becomes. And do I think that you will always be continually wounded with a hard heart if you can't find or don't ever get the opportunity to forgive somebody? No, I don't. I'm not saying that either. I'm saying it's complicated, right? I'm just saying that I think it's oversimplified what I'm about to say, but I kind of like it to some extent, because I do think there's a lot of wisdom in it. But again, it can't be applied too generally. But you're kind of letting somebody else live rent free in your heart, in your soul, in your spirit, and in your head. And if somebody's hurt you, like, Christ, God, your friends, those you love, they're the people yourself. They're the people who should be spending that time there. They're the things that should be closest to you. And for me, obviously, Christ most of all. But yeah, I don't want to say that if you've been abused, in order to heal, you have to forgive your abuser. No, you don't. You don't. You have nothing to forgive. There's nothing that you have done. So just to be clear, yeah. It says, following the questions above, does Colin believe redemption is something everyone can reach regardless of their past experience, Aneta? Yeah, that's a good one, right? It's complicated again because the world clearly doesn't believe that. And I would say, I'm afraid I don't know. I'm gonna be cowardly, and I'm gonna say I'd like to hope that there is, but I doubt that there is entirely. Like, I'll give an example to make a point. I'm going to use Hitler. I'm going to cheat, right, and use a kind of an easy target. Could we have reached out to Hitler and offered him some intervention, a bit of punishment, and it would have made up for number one, as far as we know, if we don't believe in the conspiracies that he escaped to Argentina, which some of you say there's lots of, maybe there is, maybe he did. Others believe he ended his life in the bunker in Berlin. And so there is evidence that people are irredeemable, because he himself took himself out of the opportunity for redemption. And I think redemption doesn't always look like we expect it to look like redemption. Everything's okay and we all just go on. Redemption can be that somebody could be locked up for the rest of their life for the atrocious and terrible and awful things that they've done, but that we give them the benefit of the doubt and we accept that the relationship that they have is ultimately with God, and it's only in God's eyes that they can be redeemed, if not in the eyes of the world or those that they've hurt or taken their lives of. But yeah, I have to believe in the possibility that there could be. So complicated, right? Thanks for these really tough questions, guys. That's brilliant. Great end to the episode, but thank you anyway. How sharing Colin's story affected the people around him, family, friends, or perhaps readers who reached out to Colin and Etta? What is the next road Colin feels life is leading him towards? Oh, hang on. There's two questions there. How sharing Colin's story affected the people? How has sharing Colin's story, sorry guys, affected the people around him, his family, his friends, or perhaps readers who reached out to Colin? Obviously, some people have kind of commented, have come on the show, and there's been some people who've reached out to me professionally to work with me, and if I've had time, then I've worked, or I am working with them. I don't know. My family, friends, I'll ask them the question. How has my story affected? Again, I think it's similar to the first question I was asked. Do people perceive me differently? I've been told by a couple of people, that it's had a profound impact on them, right? And I know this sounds cheesy and a lot of people say this, but it's like, if no one else reads that book and if no one else gets, then all the years, all the time, all the effort, all the pain, all the suffering, everything, if it has a knock-on effect that brings them to transformation, to a point where they can kind of go on and live and flourish in their lives, then it would have been worth it. Genuinely would have been worth it. What is the next road Colin feels his life is leading him towards? Good question. And I don't know, because I feel differently about that on different days. Obviously, I'm beginning to feel my age. I'm beginning to realize that I don't have the vigor, let's say, that I once had. Still, got a lot yet, I hope, God willing, to offer. But yeah, I want to do something that is meaningful and purposeful, and again, and it has to be something that is about making a difference in the world. So I don't know what that'll be, whether it'll be more or different. I don't know. What do you think my next road should be? You tell me. What's next road? Where do you think my life is leading me towards? Next question is, what was the most challenging part of writing my story? Violet Nicholas. Violet, thank you so much. What was the most challenging part of writing my story? Just starting it and keeping going. Yeah. And then in between, every little kind of gap in between, finding the strength to go at it again. I hope that answers. What do you hope readers will take away from the story, Violet Nicholas? Violet, I think in the end of my book, I wrote a little bit about what I hope people will take from it. I don't know if it will help people. I don't know if it will be an important book for certain people. I don't know if it will be, you know, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, forgotten about. Um, and if it is, then so be it. That's God's will. Um, and I won't regret it. I didn't write it. Um, I wrote the book at a time in my life when actually I'd already I'd already been successful in my life. I'm not writing it because I want to be a successful author, or I want to be a celebrity, or I want to be notorious, or any of those things. I have no desire for that. Um, I have. I wrote the book because my wife continued to encourage me, and she felt that there was something really, really important. Uh, and actually, I've got a bone to pick with my wife, which I'm going to get onto in a second. But yeah, hope. I hope that what people will take away from my book is hope. Just that. Um, my wife has actually finished writing her own book, and she's finished it for quite a number of years. And now I'm calling her out because she pushed me. One of the deals was I would do mine if she did hers. My wife has got an incredible story to tell, um, and she's actually very kind of skilled, she's very creative. My wife. Um, and she's got such an interesting story, and she gives herself a really hard time for being bilingual, for English not being her first language, and I also encourage her. I said, well, write your book in Polish, write it in Polish if that's what you need to do, and get it translated. But she finished. I believe she's done it in both. I think she's done it in English and in Polish, and and I haven't read it. She hasn't given. She won't give it to me, which is odd because I kind of already know probably most of the things in the book. But she's saying that she doesn't want to release it, which is a bit cheating on that because your promise was that if I did it, you would. I've done it. Put my neck on the block. This is the result. Thank you very much. Now your turn to release a book. So passing the gauntlet to you, and it's over to you. Um, and then getting back onto the questions from Violet. Uh, what is the writing process like, Violet? Tough, up, down, challenging, easy in parts, daunting. You think you've got to the end, and then more comes. Um, some of the story writes itself. Some of it doesn't look right. Yeah, it's a whole mixed bag. And I don't know, like, for example, one of the projects I'm working on at the moment is a book on addiction. I'm writing about addiction. It's like, you know, don't everything Colin thinks he knows about addiction. I think a lot of people might laugh about that, but I think I got some stuff to say there. But let's wait and see what other people think if I ever get it out. But I think depending on the book, I think because it was this kind of book and it was about me, it was very personal, and it was about kind of going to places that were, you know, apart from a few people in my life, like nobody knew any of this stuff about me. Um, and I kind of liked it like that. You know, I kind of thought, I've done all of this work on myself. It's over there. It's outside of public purview, and I can just be like a normal kind of everyday kind of person in the world. You know, just a kind of regular, normal, imperfect uh, person. Yeah, but it was tough and different and complicated and easy sometimes and tiring and draining and painful. A lot of different things. How did I learn to write? Well, I couldn't write. One of the parts of my story was that I couldn't write, and when I went to university, I'd never written an essay. I didn't even know what an essay was. A lot of people might think, well, I was kicked out of school. I went from, I don't know how many schools and secondary schools I was in, and I was eventually kicked out when I was about 15. I think I was quite young, quite early 15. I was kicked out of the Strathclyde Regional Councils. So the whole area of Strathclyde, they wouldn't take me, no schools would have me. And I'd been through so many primary schools and secondary schools, and unfortunately, the last school that I was at, I was just settling into things like geography and art, and I'd been through that kind of early stage of being the new kid on the block and getting into a scuffle or two, and I was mostly being kind of left alone until then. Um, yeah. So when it came to me coming through all of my addiction, all of my trauma, and eventually many, many rehabs, and I was very ill. And at 23, when I cleaned up and then I entered the education system, I had to go through access to education. I couldn't write. And then I just think that I learned whatever aspects that came from me in terms of writing or skill to write came from, I don't know where it comes from. It comes from God, right? I don't know where it can't come from my determination, me never giving up, me keeping trying, pushing back against the shame, back against the embarrassment, back against the messages that told me that I wasn't good enough. Um, you know, it wasn't like, and also kind of like having to self correct. So, like, rather than tell myself I have to be this person who does all of this stuff and it does it perfectly, and I have to, I just had to be me. I just had to go, well, this is what I'm doing. Um, yeah, so writing process, like, and again, it's like everything, anything I write, you just have to get on with it. You just have to kind of get your neck in there, get stuck, get your head down, and kind of get into it. I'm not a natural writer, and again, it's not my job, as I've explained earlier as well. Even though I've done it, and even though I'm doing more, um, and I didn't learn. I learned to write much later on. Write, spell, grammar, everything. What projects are you currently working on? Well, working on I don't know. Do you mean? I don't know if you mean, Violet. What writing projects am I working on? One on addiction. I'm working on a daily meditation book, a reflection book, which is about being a Catholic and a therapist around my faith. So it's an everyday thing that people would pick up and they kind of read, and it's written on the basis. I'm kind of stealing the idea that it's been done many times. I don't know who the original, or if there was an original person that did this, but the original was based on recovery text. So I used to read One Day at a Time, which was a 12-step thing, and there was like for men recovery and codependency no more, and there's all these kind of things I used to read, and there'd be a reflection and a kind of meditation, something to think about, a little kind of wise thing. So I stole that kind of structure, if you like, which is, and I don't think it belongs to anybody. I don't think it's called anything. It's just a daily thing. The intention is that I'm writing it in the days in which it's written. So if I say it's the 16th of August, I'm actually writing it on the 16th of August, and I'm doing it. So if if I stay true to that process, it might take about 300 years to write. So don't hold your breath for that, but I might have to cheat on the process at some point to get it to fruition. But the whole point is to kind of talk about scripture, talk about my relationship with faith, talk about the challenges as well, and reflect on the world, and then give something for the reader to kind of take away to reflect on. So that's that book. I'm also working on getting the University of to find me the right supervisor to finish my PhD. My PhD, I'm hoping, is based on it's a PhD by works. Because I've pursued, I think, up to date 5 academic PhDs and kind of haven't completed any of them because I've pulled out at different stages, and that's why I've got tons of postgraduate qualifications because I kind of busy, life's happening, or I just kind of think like it's not really for me. I don't really think that that kind of strict way of doing stuff. I've been on so many courses where I just kind of think like it doesn't resonate with me. I'm not kind of really gelling with it, and also I don't really believe in. And this might sound really arrogant, right? And maybe it is, but I don't believe in the process that's being sold, or I don't believe in the ideas that are being posited. And also some stuff I didn't have the time, and other stuff I was scared and felt inadequate at times as well. I just felt like kind of out of my depth. And even though I can push through that, I do that, and I do come up against feeling inadequate and scared and all of that kind of stuff. And that's just a process for me, and I can't push beyond it. But sometimes I just don't want to put the energy into doing that, so I didn't. So my PhD, building our group, the kind of group which another thing that you guys are going to get to hear more about is that there was a brand show for the podcast, which is all people from across the group, other professionals, other people doing wonderful jobs. Apoca, Chrysalis Supported Association, touched on developments, the Compass Project, the Broken Roads podcast itself, Pods and Ends Studios, rather, I think I should call it, not the Broken Roads podcast, sorry. Other development building companies, Apoca as a charity, the drug and alcohol kind of services, the other services, so there's lots and lots and lots of stuff that kind of I'm doing, my private work as well, and also private kind of consultancy in Italy as well. So there's lots and lots of stuff that's going on, and looking to kind of try and find some really kind of like hope-filled and kind of interesting and passionate people to help join me on that journey to support that as well. And then what might readers not realise about the book just from reading it, Violet? What might they not read about? Like, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that. What might they not realise about the book? Like somebody fairly mundane like me wrote it. I think if you saw me, you wouldn't go, "Oh, that's Colin. That's the kind of guy." Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't fit the stereotype, I think I would say. How long did it take to write the book? Well, Violet, it took, I don't know how long. It felt like it took about 3 years. I don't know if it was that long. It might have been long. It might have been longer. How many drafts amended before it was published? Wow. I should just put you in touch with Christopher, I think. How many drafts you amended before? It was tons and tons, and edits and copy proofs and proof. Yeah, tons, lots. I don't know how many, but lots. It was kind of like thought, and also I was writing. I was writing my book, and my mum came back into my life, so that was kind of hobbled on. And then I was kind of I had my conversion whilst I was writing my book. Not I don't think because of my book, but maybe it was God reaching in, and I don't know, but it was definitely me kind of reaching out to God. So yeah. Do you believe the teachers at the schools little Colin attended were sufficiently trained to recognise and respond to a child in need of support? In need of support to support someone like me, Marzena Konaziewska. I'm really sorry, Marzena. Please forgive me. I don't mean to offend you. I'm really rubbish at pronouncing Polish names. My wife teaches me all the time about all the silent W's and the fizz but I'm not very good. I'm not very good. So I'm just going to say Marzena, if you don't mind. Do I think? No, I think teachers are stitched up, if I'm honest. I think it's really unfair. I think they're overstretched. If we're talking about our kind of state-funded schools that the taxpayer pays for, not private schools, not homeschooling. I don't know about those institutions per se. I think teachers are stitched up. I don't think they're given anywhere near enough training. I don't think they're given anywhere near enough support. I don't think they're supported by the state. I don't think that they are paid well enough. I don't think that, and I don't think that we can pay them well enough. I don't think we've got enough money as a country, but I think that we should. And I think that our teachers, and also I don't think that we understand that teachers need to be formed themselves. And I also think that there's really kind of strange motivation sometimes for teachers. And yeah, so I don't know. I don't think so. I'd say that I don't think so. And I think from experience, from knowing teachers, from my own experiences, my grandchildren, my own children, from my personal experience, no, I do not think that they're trained. But I don't think it's just training. I think it's also formation. I think it's also cultural, the teaching culture itself is kind of leaves itself exposed to lots of risks. And I don't think it's fair for people in general, including the people who receive the service, the children. Um, how can a system be improved so that children like little Colin don't have to go through hell on earth? Mazena, thank you for that. Look, only this, us, me, you, other people, continue to have conversations, continue to help and support, fill in the gaps, raise awareness, speak truth, be courageous. Recognize and of course social services are under pressure. Social services are, we talk a good talk, but we don't do a good walk. Yeah, there's a lot of brokenness. There's a lot of darkness in the world. There's a lot of darkness everywhere. There's a lot of deprivation. It's a complicated thing, and it would be like, I don't want to be like, it's the teachers. It's the teachers. I think that's what perhaps the culture wants us to believe, or the powers that be, so that we've got someone to blame. And I'm not saying that it isn't sometimes the teachers that are to blame also, but I don't want to put all the hook on them. I think it's really complicated. I think we need a real culture shift across the board. But thanks for that. Really good question. A personal question: after everything I've been through, are you able to trust to forget, Marjana? Okay. First of all, trust. Absolutely. Of course I can trust. Is there always that little part of little Colin that will always be there? Just double checking, just to make sure. Yeah, I think so. I think that's healthy. I think that we should never trust blankly. There should never be a blanket trust. And I think more importantly, I think I'd caveat that with, there are people who will break our trust sometimes as well, and we have to allow them to. We have to accept their persons, and if it can be repaired and they genuinely mean it, and you think that they are to be trusted, then do that. So, do I think the normal process of trust can be restored to a greater or lesser extent? Yeah. Forget? Do you forget? No, you'll never forget, but you won't be haunted, if that makes sense. Won't haunt, or at least not as much, nowhere near as much, not to the point of it utterly trapping, making you feel trapped, and it occupies you all of the time. So yeah, and like again, every now and again, it can just be like something that just bumps a thing of a memory, but it's kind of just like a little puff of smoke, and you let it go. So, yeah, can you forget? Kind of, but of course not. Not entirely. You can learn not to. You find a way to be able to not pay attention to the memories in the way that you did before. What would you say to someone who feels they have a story like yours but are afraid to tell it? Ella Vassal. Yeah, I feel for you. I'm the same. I felt that. I would tell them, do it. The world needs you to tell your story. You need to tell your story. You might be that reason that makes a person turn in a different direction. It can be that profound. What helped you stay grounded emotionally while working on such difficult memories? Ella Vassal. Okay, Ella, we're talking decades, right? So there wasn't one thing that kept me grounded. Sometimes I wasn't grounded. I was in and out of the 12 steps. I had very good friendships. I was also not in the 12 steps. I was connected, disconnected. I was reconnected. and I suppose today, my wife, my family, but Christ, my faith. Um, like my faith in just my faith in God alone is sufficient enough for me to find the reason to get up and to go at it, to go at the day, and then everything else that falls from that. So where are we? Well, what can I say? Yeah. What do you hope people will take away from your book, especially those who have experienced something similar? Okay. Oh, what do I hope? I hope that they take away that we can recover. There is hope. We can rise above it. That I hope as well that they find Christ, because Christ is the catalyst for me, or at least they find love in the world and they find strength and they find hope. So I hope that people will take away from my book that whilst there's a breath in you, there's hope. That no matter how spiritually bankrupt you feel, no matter how desperate, no matter how hopeless, no matter how lonely, no matter how dark things feel, no matter how tough, no matter how many times you've slipped, no matter how many times you've fallen, no matter how many times you've disappointed, no matter how many things you've lost, each breath, each day, each moment it can be a fresh start, it can be a new beginning. So that's what I would hope that they take away, and that God is for us. He's not against us, and He hasn't abandoned us. Many people have a story in them but won't tell it because they're worried about people's judgment or upsetting their loved ones. How did you navigate that? You can't navigate it. You have to accept that as part of the process and trust that those people will love you still. Yeah, I don't think you can. You just, once you've made that decision, and you've made that decision because it's for the reasons that are important to you, then you have to trust and do it anyway. Yeah. Tell your story. People will judge you anyway, whether you write the story or not. So do it. Looking back, what was the turning point for you? I think I'd have to say turning points. Like my life has been a series of turning points, me going that way and then turning back that way and turning this way and turning. So I think, what was the turning point? What are the big things that stuck out? My children, my wife, Christ, my faith, religion, my education, my business. Yeah. The beginning, 23, when when I was almost dead, I'd just been through just hell. It was a living hell. And I went from a living hell to a different type of living hell. But that was my turning point. I decided that I couldn't do it anymore. Just couldn't do what I was doing anymore. Just couldn't do it. And I was I knew that I didn't want to kill myself, and I knew I didn't want to die, not like that. That was my turning point. I think that was the catalyst. It had to be different. I didn't want to die that way. What would I say to my younger self, people who are going through the struggles and experiences that you've had. And I think I've kind of said that already. I think don't give up. Don't kill yourself. Get help. Reach out, and don't, look, don't don't put unrealistic expectations on yourself or on other people. One little baby step can turn into massive. My life is full of just tiny little steps, sliding backwards and tiny little steps forward, and before you know it, you've got a whole life of an entirely different journey, and it's just like that. Life is made up of seconds and minutes and hours, and those make days, and those days make weeks, and so on. So remember, life doesn't happen as one instantaneous event. What would you say to your younger self, people who are going through? That's what I've already read that one. What would you say? What would you like to be the legacy of my work? Good question, Joanna. Thank you. What would I like to be the legacy of my work? That there is a legacy. Yeah, that there is something that people see of that there is. Yeah. So I think already my children and my business and all of those things, right? They've already had some kind of impact. I think, right? I'd like to, and with my relationship with my wife, and for me, my deepest cry out to God as I had been almost stabbed to death, and I lay in intensive care, and when I had overdosed, and when I had done all sorts of things, was just I don't want to die this way, and so it's one day at a time, God willing. I won't die this way, and if there's any other legacy beyond that, it's like I didn't take my life. I chose to continue to fight despite every part of me wanting to give up. Okay, I don't know what this is.
That's a message, not a question. They just want to say that to you.
I read Colin's book with a heavy heart. Colin warned me that it would be difficult to read, but I could never have imagined that his life had been so sorrowful. Colin is an extraordinary man. Yeah, I don't know if I can read that. Who found himself in a tragic, dysfunctional family, and his life was turned into hell. Yeah, I can't read that. I think I'm going to publish that. It's a bit too raw. But thank you, Basha and František. Amazing people, and I'm going to put some links to them. And we've got like a world famous artist there, who's Aneta's uncle, as well, my wife's uncle, and auntie, who was a lecturer and professor, I think in Polish history, or might have even been natural, or I can't remember. I don't want to. I'll just be making things up. But thank you for that. I've got just another few questions here, because yeah, so I've got some questions. I'm going to go back to these, and I have Paul Bridge. So Paul Bridge used to be the CEO of Civitas Investments. I've met Paul many times. Good friend. He now works somewhere else, and he's ambassador. I think he's a patron, or he's a founder of the Clive Smith Foundation, I think it is. I'm going to link this in the description as well, and it's for those in the housing professions who have taken their life or who have committed suicide, and he's there to kind of be somewhere and a voice of for people to reach out to. I'm going to link. I'm saying this really badly, but Paul Bridge says, he said his question was, I guess my question is, where did you get the mental strength to not just give up? I only see this. So number one, I don't think I did have the mental strength. Like, my mental strength was taken to its capacity and beyond. I really believe it was God in my life, and people may see that as controversial, but there's been a voice which I believe is the Holy Spirit, that's been there even before my conversion, and it just wouldn't let me give up. Just saying no, just wait, don't do that. You don't need to do that. Just go to sleep, or do what you've got to do, whatever that might have been during my time in my addiction. Just take that pill or do that thing. We don't want you to do that, but if that just gets you through this afternoon, or it gets you through today or this weekend or tonight, then do that. Yeah. So yeah, I don't believe that it was my mental strength. I believe any strength that I had came from God, not me. I was at the limits of my strength. Hope that answers, Paul, and God bless. Thank you for that. And then I've got a question here from Des. It says, how did you manage to forgive those who abused you? I began the process of opening myself up to the possibility. I'm not saying that I have. But if there was a situation where I was asked to, I'd do it for Christ. I'd do it because Christ forgave me. Christ died for me. Not because of me. Hope that answers the question, Des. So my daughter, Kaylee, she asked 2 questions. She said 2 questions, pick one, but I'm going to answer both. She said, was there a particular chapter or moment in the book that was the hardest to write but the most rewarding once it was done? I don't want to use the words rewarding, a tricky character, and I am always kind of picking apart words because I just don't like the word rewarding. Necessary. I think the first chapter, the opening chapter. I think that was the toughest one. If I could go back to a version of myself who was living through those broken roads, what would you tell him? Oh, there's various times I'd go back. I wouldn't tell him anything. I would say I'd hug him. And I would look in his eyes and I would say, it's going to be different. Hope that answers. Thanks, darling. Thanks for that. Right, so this is my stepson, Matty. Thank you. For anyone listening who feels like they're on their own broken road right now, what would you want to say to them? Hold on, it will be different. What's something you've learned about yourself through making this podcast that you didn't know when you started? I'm more overweight than I thought I was. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I know why people bend themselves up in anxiety and fear and they don't want to do stuff. I just, I had all the same messages. I'm going to be rubbish. I'm going to be crap. No one's going to listen. No one's going to subscribe. It's true. Hardly anyone subscribed. I don't know if I'm rubbish. Some people have said it's really good. I think that's because of the guests that I brought on. So I've learned that I can do it. Like most things, I've learned that actually it's for the world to make of it. What they make of it, for me, it's like, yeah, done it, and done it with the help of Sylvie. I've done it with the help of all of the guests who've come and contributed, and yeah. And then your final question is, Matty, if this were the last episode that I ever recorded, what message would I want to leave behind? God is real. God is real. Evil's real. Yeah. That's it. So, so that was my wife's question. Okay. This is Kasha. This is my daughter as well. And hello. Her question is, do I think if I had a normal functioning family and didn't experience the abuse, would you be in the same place as you are now? What a great question. I don't think I would. No, I absolutely don't. I thought about that. I thought about that many times. What do you think? Do you think I would? What do you think I'd be doing? Say my family loved me as much as you love your children, and I had such a great mother, such as a great mother that you are. And I had a great dad and a great extended family. What do you think I would have been instead? What do you think I would have done? Be interested to hear that. If you hear this, drop that in the comments. Let me know. Did the experiences you had somehow shaped you to be the person you are now? Yeah, they must have done. I think, yeah, absolutely. Was it a hard decision to expose yourself in the book to the whole world? Yeah. 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 Because I didn't need to. Like, the majority of the world didn't know. But I owe it to God, I owe it to other children who are being abused, I owe it to other adults who are struggling. You know, everything I was given as a gift. And it would be selfish to keep it to myself. So as painful, as difficult as it was, I felt I had a duty to do it. Where do I think I would be now if I didn't change my path? Dead? In hell? Yeah. Or locked up indefinitely. Absolutely insane, but I'm most likely dead. My money's on dead a long time ago. 30 years ago, I'd have been dead, if not a bit more than 30 years ago. Good question. Thanks for that, darling. So, I believe that we've come to the end of the questions. And I don't know if you've got any final questions, Sylvie, from over there, from the technical desk, or whether you think that we're pretty much at a wrap.
I think we're set.
We're set. Okay. Well, look, what I would like to do is say again, just before we wrap up, and I've never really opened this podcast in prayer. I've never really prayed. But I have a reflection in my book, and if you just kind of bear with me a minute, I'd like to kind of dig it up. I'd like to end the podcast. And before I end, I want to say thank you to Sylvie. I want to say thank you to all my guests, all those who have followed me, all those who have supported me. Thank you to all of you for your questions. Yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't answer them as fully or as adequately as perhaps you had hoped for. I do hope that you reach out. I do hope that you come and follow us and encourage us and help shape who we become and the things that we do in the future. And I'm really looking forward to season 2. So if you could just bear with me whilst I have a little dig around, I will come back to you. So your question then, Sylvie, is you asked me, how do I feel after all of those questions? Wow. How do I look? How do you think I feel?
Good. I think some of them hit home.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they did, definitely did. Great questions. And I think as well, it's important that people understand that, like, it's not like I'm healed in the sense of it goes away. It's also um, it's also really important to acknowledge that I can cry and I can feel that tenderness and that sadness and experience that loss, which is something I couldn't before. I mean, that's profound. That's a profound movement in terms of who I am as a person, and I don't feel ashamed for that. Um, but yeah, it's kind of. I feel like yeah, I've been through it again. But yeah, but good. It's good. I think it's a good. It's funny, I think, how our last guest kind of wasn't able to make it, and so episodes 12 of season one actually ended like this, and it feels like it's the right way to end it. So, you know, and God willing, there'll be other podcasts, but you never know. Could be the final last one. Yeah. So what I'd like to do is just to read the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians, chapter 13, the way of love. And I'd like to do that, and when I finish, that's the end of episode 12. And I've said my thank yous, and I will see. I look forward to seeing you all. We'll be having a little break through Christmas, but we'll be doing a relaunch and revisiting some of the stuff that we've done in the meantime. Again, throughout the Christmas period, and we'll be, and then at the end, towards the end of January, I think, or the beginning of February, we'll be updating you anyway. We'll be launching season 2, to which I'm like really, really super excited about. And you never know, there might be a sneaky one or two odd sessions in between with guests in the meantime. So you never know. So we'll keep you on your toes, and we'll do our best and to keep in touch. But until then, thank you all so much, and again, thank you everybody for your support. Thank you, Sylvie. So from the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians, chapter 13, the way of love. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful. It is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong, but rejoices in the right. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. For our knowledge is imperfect and our prophecy is imperfect. But when the perfect comes, the imperfect will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now, we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall understand fully, even as I have been fully understood. So faith, hope, abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love. Peace be with you, and God bless you, and may you know the truth and magnificence of your true purpose.